This is Anti-Paper Business Club by Opus Capita. I'm Hana, that's me right there, and my job here is to pass on the wisdom of my marvelous guests onto you all. Listen up. Today we're going to talk about Peppol, in particular Peppol orders. Okay, slight correction. You're watching part 1, which will be a lot on invoices, but there's a part 2 on orders. And for that, I've got here two very special guests. We've got Keijo Kettunen from the State Treasury of Finland and Anders Pettersson from DIK Sweden. Welcome, both of you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And so who they are is they know like everything about Peppol, and they want all of you to use Peppol-based messages to the max. And what's more, they both represent Peppol authorities in their countries, so you should definitely hear them out. So Keijo, Finland has been kind of often stated as the forerunner in e-invoicing, and there's also a very high penetration of e-invoicing in Finland today. What are your comments on that?
For the first, I have to say that we are proud about that we have been forerunners, and there has been many reasons for that. We started quite early. It was in the beginning of this century, and how it started. So governmental agencies started to demand e-invoices in their tenders.
That means any supplier selling to the state must be able to invoice them electronically. That's actually become true for a whole lot of countries globally, and we totally support that.
And on the same time, so we arranged also for small companies software which they could use free of charge when sending e-invoices to the governmental offices. And on that way, I think we could proceed quite quickly.
And then e-invoicing in Finland started to spread from the governmental offices to the private sector.
And I have to also underline that all happened voluntarily in Finland.
Which is quite awesome. So we are doing well in Finland. But then, Anders, how does that sound to you in Sweden, or for Sweden as well? It actually started as various initiatives rather than one common thing. And I guess Keijo here is arguing that Finland is a little ahead.
Yeah,
Is this true?
that. Yeah.
Is this true?
Forerunners. Yeah. Well, I'm not 100% sure of how the evolution was actually, but so far I know that we had various private initiatives during the 90s in specific sectors in Sweden for e-invoicing. This was EDI formats.
So then also the public sector started to look into e-invoicing, and as a result, Sweden got its first informal national standard with Svefaktura in 2004.
And we also have a common interest organization in Sweden, which we call SFTI, and I will get back to that later. But in that collaboration, we actually founded the so-called Svefaktura. That's the national format, like Finvoice here in Finland. So the Svefaktura was early on. So maybe it's on its 20th year next year. So that was quickly approached in the public sector, and since we then had that as an option, more and more suppliers also, of course, used the Svefaktura.
So then Sweden also has their format with 20 years of forerunning, which is great for Sweden. But how is this all related to Peppol again? Let's recap. Svefaktura and Finvoice are national Swedish and Finnish e-invoice formats, whereas Peppol is an international standard and open network for invoices, orders, everything.
Today we don't recommend the Svefaktura because as we are here, we are discussing Peppol, but that was the way for the Swedish e-invoicing, I think.
So how I would personally put that is national formats are like so last season, and all the cool companies now use Peppol. Yes? No?
So I don't know, forerunners, I would say that we are more like
Forerunners together?
Forerunners together, or very, very early at least, or?
Maybe I have to accept that.
So the good old competition between Sweden and Finland is a tie.
If I say some numbers, so at the governmental level, so the penetration is 98% in Finland. So
Do you know
I
the
think
figure for that in Sweden? Sorry.
I can't say that we have 90 plus. We have. I have actually very new data from the whole sector, that is municipalities, regions, and state agencies, governmental agencies, and the average is 82. So it's quite okay, I would say, and we have a lot of agencies and also regions and municipality who are way over 90. But that said, this is not only Peppol, but it is structured formats, or so created, transferred, and received in electronic format. So that is very positive, and the new law has, of course, put more efforts into Peppol.
Quite okay. Sorry.
Just seriously speaking, so I think we are when we are taking into account whole nation, so we have about same numbers just now. But I have to say also that of course it's advantage for the whole Nordic area when we have a high share of e-invoices.
Let's repeat that. It's advantage for the whole Nordic area when we have a high share of e-invoices.
And that's the most important goal we must have, to increase share of e-invoices in whole every Nordic country.
Yeah, in the area. Yeah, because
Yes.
we more or less often have the same kind of suppliers also. We can make it happen together. I mean, when the supplier recognize that this is same kind of demands, no matter if it's Finland or Sweden or Denmark or Norway or Iceland, for that matter. I think we are small countries, so we have to collaborate on these issues also.
Definitely.
And to really keep on asking for Peppol BIS.
Yeah, there are quite a few companies who have like business all over Nordics, so it makes sense that we're in it together. All right, but so for now, you mentioned Swefaktura, Finvoice, TEAPS in Finland, but now, so Peppol is actually the legal standard in Sweden, whereas in Finland it's the national formats. So how do you see that affects, for example, the adoption of e-invoices in Swedish organizations versus Finnish organizations? Either, or maybe Anders, you want to start?
Well, as you said, yeah, it's the kind of legal format, but it's only connected to our tenders from the public sector. So we can't say anything about other formats in other businesses. But again, when the legislation arrived, I mean the EU directive about e-invoicing, we knew that there were a lot of demands on a decision from the governmental sector. Just tell us what should we use, what is the message from you, so we can adapt to that. So I think it was a good thing that we decided for us, or at least in the public sector, to actually use Peppol BIS. And you are compliant with the law if you use Peppol BIS, because the law is actually talking about the European standard. But I mean, the Peppol BIS is one way of handling that. So that has been an easy way forward, I would say.
I would say so too. But even though Peppol is a legal standard in Sweden, which pushes to use it, changing to a new way of doing things does require some effort.
The supplier must be aware of that. So they can't just keep on doing the same old solution they have been doing for 10 years. So
Yeah, exactly.
it's a transformation time, and we are talking about numbers 80%, 90%. We still have those 10% or something. Why is that so hard to accomplish?
Yeah, why is it? We'd love to hear your comments. Probably, yeah. All right, so we mentioned the European standard, which very much affects Finland as well. What are your comments on that, Keijo, and this whole like legal standard being Beppo versus the national standards in Finland?
It's quite easy to comment that. For the first, I have to admit that Sweden has made a good decision when making one standard mandatory. And concerning Peppol messages in Finland, e-orders, so the awareness of Peppol is quite low in Finland.
And do you mean for in orders or invoices or both? All of the
both.
messages?
Actually, concerning invoicing, so we have, as you said, Finvoice and TEAPS, and two leading standards, and they comply with the European standards. So I can't believe that we will move on to Peppol standard in the short run, but on the long run, we should strive for the same standard as Sweden has done. But that's possible only on the long run.
So I would argue that not making Peppol the legal standard in Finland has, in fact, made it less well known than it is in Sweden. But Peppol is a great thing. How do we make it spread?
We have to train first companies to use Peppol messages, e-orders, what they are including, what's the structure and so on. And Peppol authority in Finland has started that work. Legislation is impossible just now in Finland, but we are going towards Peppol messages. One reason for that is that during our project, in real-time project, so governmental offices have made decision that they will implement Peppol messages before the end of 2024. And after that, we will demand also private companies to send us Peppol-based e-orders and procurement messages.
In fact, during the real-time economy project, the Finnish governmental offices decided on implementing Peppol messages by the end of 2024, after which they will demand Peppol orders also from the private sector. Right now, we're gonna say thank you for this first part. The second part will come out quite soon. And the way to make sure that you don't miss it is to subscribe to our newsletter and follow us, and you will stay tuned for our next part. Thank you.